we're beginning to feel a lot less like an AI company every single day, more like magicians that are performing for an audience. But the difference is that magicians use illusions to impress us. When something's truly impressive, you can actually know the secret, and it becomes even more magical once you know how it works. They say that good magicians never reveal their tricks, but the greatest magicians don't really see it that way. This is actually the only thing that Teller from Penn and Teller ever actually spoke out about, out loud. Yes, the famous magician who never uttered a word in decades actually talked about this very concept. He performed a 100-year-old trick on This American Life that's so amazing that once you know how it works, it's even better. So the twist was, he actually showed it to the audience exactly how it worked, and then he performed it again. And that's the reason why Teller actually spoke, to make you question magic entirely. And that's the feeling of magic that I'm talking about. We feel that all the time lately. Everybody that works with AI on a regular basis has these moments they call feeling the AGI moments. But no technology since the Manhattan Project has triggered such existential feelings. We did this customer demo the other day, and it felt just different than normal. Actually, it's been feeling different for a while now. It used to be really, really hard to build AI. After all, the user can ask for literally anything that they want. But this time, it was just different. No nerves, just smooth. It doesn't make mistakes anymore. It's lightning fast. Then the questions come up. Can we visualize differently? Can we send an email? Can we break this down by customer? And it just doesn't make mistakes. To the customer, it's like magic. But to us, who know the intricacies behind it, millions of tokens being processed all at the same time, it feels like magic to us too. So how do we do it? What's our invisible routine that Teller was talking? Well, it's less of a mechanism and it's more of a philosophy. You see, what our AI does so well is strike the right balance between form and flow. You see, AI, much like business, is an art and a science. Too much structure, and you get something rigid and clunky, but not enough structure, and you get something error-prone, filled with hallucinations. Much like a sword, it can't be too brittle or too flexible, but if you strike the right balance, you have a very formidable weapon. We tend to think of business operations as no place for beautiful and elegant design, but business is an art and a science. Really, any skill, when you want to become formidable at it, from the boxing ring to the boardroom, you have to strike a balance between knowing the rules and knowing when to go off script, when to stay structured and disciplined, but also when to adapt to respond to changes. When we see a company incorporate that balance, especially with using AI, they surpass their competition not with brute force, but they do it easily. That's what true AI mastery looks like. It weaves itself seamlessly into your workflows, seamlessly into your software, seamlessly into your operations, and it gets out of your way. But AI agents alone can't do that for you. It's just a skill that you have to learn and pick up on your own. That's why we made a business workspace that has form and flow built into it. When companies adopt a generative operating system, what they can do is they can reshape and remold their operations using AI on the fly. They can just ask it, hey, we need to look at something different. We need a different automation here. They have the ability to incorporate AI anywhere they want, and it feels like magic. That's our invisible strength. That's the formula. And it's something so powerful that once you get the hang of it, the real magic is only just beginning. When you're using an AI-enabled workspace, it's like having lightning in a bottle. But to do that, we need to connect everything together. The problem that we see most businesses facing today is relying exclusively on pre-built integrations. We have AI now. We don't need to do that. We don't need to rely on pre-built connectors, because AI, the only thing disconnecting any application from any other application is a small layer of integration code. And the large language models today, every single one of them, is fully capable of writing that small little piece of code. So every single piece of software is now connected to every other single piece of software through AI. The good news is it only needs to go in a one-way direction. You can have a self-building, an AI-enabled workspace that connects to your CRM, that connects to your payroll, that connects to everything else. And it doesn't need to go in the other direction. You could just have one of them coordinating the rest. And another problem that we see a lot of businesses struggling with is that they can't get custom analytics. They're relying on pre-built analytics that are built into the CRM or built into the banking software, built into the payroll software. But it's not one size fits all. And getting custom answers or custom questions is basically impossible in the software that a lot of them are using. And what we end up doing is we either just don't answer those questions and we're flying completely blind, or if that company does want to take it to the next level and they want to get access to that information, they pull it from the business software into Excel, or they hire an engineer to build some kind of database and throw it into like a business intelligence intelligence tool like Power BI. So you're either like using these clunky Excel workflows, or you're spending tens of thousands of dollars for some consulting firm to build that custom dashboard. But it's the same thing. There's just no need for it. AI can just build any analytics that we want. As long as all my data is connected, I could just ask it, hey, you have all this information. I want to know my percentage change per month of this. I want to see how many leads are coming in. I want to know this. I want to know that. All this stuff is not pre-built. It's entirely custom. You just pop it up and you're like, hey, my campaign's in Instantly. Can we see that broken down per customer, per sequence, per campaign? There's data in Instantly, sure, but it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. You need to be able to see it custom if you want to be able to truly respond to change, truly A/B test, and truly be an adaptable team that has both form and flow. When your workspace is fully connected and can reshape itself on the fly, AI feels like a canvas where you can just paint any process or any automation of your business that you like. Suddenly, getting information or getting new automations becomes like a really creative and easy process. So you get used to trying out a bunch of different automations and a bunch of different models, a bunch of different visuals in like a million different ways. And you need to be creative and you need to be able to flow to be able to improve your business and get results. But you also need real data. It needs to be real metrics. Like you need to have that structure. You need to have that process. We need to be able to do like quickly and adapt instead of just paying a consulting company $20,000 and letting them go for 2 months trying to build a dashboard for you. So there's absolutely no reason that AI can't build complex workflows and perform complex tasks. Any model, any metric, any process should be all at your fingertips. And what happens is people, when they hire a consulting company to do it, it feels pretty bad because it takes forever and it's really expensive. And by the time they have that metric, like that information might not be as relevant by the time they're finished with that project. So people tend to just get discouraged and they give up on good business intelligence and they give up on structured workflows and processes and they give up on AI and technology completely because it's just too much rigidity. It's too much friction to be able to implement it properly. And this is really easy to implement today. Our customers, all the businesses we work with, are really used to, at this point, being able to model and visualize their business in 100 different ways. What this lets you do is look at your business in an absurdly simple way. This is always where we start. We start with the most basic model of a company possible. You start with your top line revenue and you go to your bottom line margin. But if it's so easy to build hundreds of different models and be able to visualize your business in every possible dimension, all on the fly, anytime you want to, what everybody has is the same exact reaction. Once they have that kind of power, they all start with the same thing. We need to focus on the top line first. We all want to make more money. We all want to master exponential growth. Once your business is growing like a bottle rocket, then we can go into operations and fulfillment and procurement and those kinds of things that optimize our bottom line. When you're not at that point, if you're not a massive company already, the first thing you want to do is master growth. So how do we do that? Again, this comes back to a CRM that's AI enabled. We need to make it flexible. Everybody wants to A/B test. Everybody wants to respond to data. They want to have streamlined, automated operations. We want to be able to be analytical, data-oriented. But the tools that we're using, what we're seeing with most of the companies that we work with is that they start struggling with those tools. They're great, they provide structure, which is helpful to a point. But as soon as that structure becomes inhibiting, it's almost like there's a glass ceiling on all this software that just ends up getting in your way. What people end up doing is they try to get this information by like putting it into Excel or Zapier. They try to automate some way by using some external tool. And again, it's helpful to a point, and it's helpful and it's helpful and it's helpful. And then you just kind of get these diminishing returns and things start to taper off and you just hit a ceiling where your tools that used to be really helpful end up being really, really restrictive, and they just end up getting in your way. So if you don't have infinite integrations, if you can't connect AI to literally everything, what happens is you start trying to figure out ways to do that yourself. Again, you hire engineers, or you start using Zapier, you start using Excel to get the information, you start filling in all these gaps in your software because it has so many gaps, but it's just a little bit too rigid, and it's relying on pre-built connections and pre-built integrations, pre-built analytics. Everything needs to be custom. If you really, really want to know your company and you want to be able to experiment and be creative, it needs to be custom. But we can't make it custom. A lot of companies we run into end up struggling trying to get something to fit perfectly into the mold of their team and how it operates. That mold might be different last quarter and this quarter. It's always kind of changing, but the software doesn't really end up changing. So what happens is people get frustrated and they do one of two things. they either give up on adapting and they just sit in their tools and they just let their software run their life and run their company, or they give up on the software and they're still adapting and they're still being creative, but now they're not streamlining things, they're not getting good data, they're not being disciplined, they're not getting good process. So they get one or the other. But with AI, now we have a unique opportunity to do both at the same time, to be able to reshape these workflows and have them adapt to us instead of us adapting to them. So that's the first part. We want to be able to reshape our workflow on the fly, have it remold. And so AI is really good for that. It's really good for being able to visualize our business in a million different ways and automate in a million different ways and let us be creative and adapt and experiment, still have the analytics and the automation and all that computer software magic that we need to be able to be successful. So we need to have both. We also need AI and humans to collaborate seamlessly. We need to be able to work together. And nobody's really cracked this yet. But the companies that we work with are having a really, really easy time getting their AI to work in mainline production, to actually not just sit in research and development, but do real things alongside their coworkers. In fact, the AI itself has a project management board. It makes itself its own boards for tracking, for monitoring. This is how we organize people, right? This is how we organize humans. We give them tasks, we start building reports, or at least we like to, if our tools would allow us. But to the extent that we can, or the extent that most companies can, we try to track performance, and we try to test things, and we try to experiment, and we try to figure out a flow where we can kind of have a weekly report and have a meeting at the end of, on Fridays and talk to people and say, hey, are you blocked in anything? What's going on? We need to be able to communicate. And so we end up talking to each other on Jira or Notion or Asana or whatever project management software. But we also want to be able to track AI and be able to see what it's doing. And we want to be able to help it in its performance. So if AI is struggling with its project, if we're seeing that, like the AI is trying to get some information from our customer or vendor over email, and it's like not doing it 100% of the time, it's struggling. Just the same way with an employee, when you hire somebody and they're struggling to get access to the information, they're like, oh, I'm always waiting on responses from the customer. Then you can look at it and you can see on the project management board, okay, for some reason, Jimmy's tickets aren't going from this column to the next column. Like his tickets take 20% longer than everyone else's. Like, what's going on? And you can talk to him and have a conversation. We want to be able to do the same thing with the AI. Because one thing that hasn't changed, even though everything feels different now, is that the AI and the humans need to be able to be developed, and we need to be able to track things. We need to be able to keep ourselves accountable, and we need to be able to see everyone's performance. Because we all might be at 70%. We're trying to get to 85%. We're all trying to improve our performance levels, and the easiest way to do that is with project management, is with tracking. And it's by being able to change that process if it's not working for somebody, because it's not always perfect. So you've always got to be changing it. So we know that a lot of businesses don't have these capabilities today. And they start to get really frustrated with AI. They put it down because a lot of times it's because it's too rigid or it's not rigid enough. It's just not at that perfect balance where it's just right. It's either that it's hallucinating and it's completely worthless, or it's too structured and it takes so long to make it do anything basic that it's not helpful for them anymore. What we're seeing is that the people that incorporate it today are getting dramatically different results. Even an AI that can only do 80%, 85% accuracy for some tasks can still save, in some cases we've seen, tens of thousands of dollars a month. We saw a company save $30,000 a month by having an AI just reading PDFs. And it turns out that takes a lot of money and a lot of time to just have somebody parse through that information. That's all labor. That's all human labor that goes into that. So even having it being 80% right and doing basic steps like citing its sources and going back and having references and having checklists, the same thing that we do with humans, right? This is the same thing that we do with human processes. You can actually have AI and humans work together. You can end up saving a lot of money or improving your sales dramatically. So what people end up doing is they have this attitude where they want to sit around and wait for AI to become 10 times smarter before they start using it in their business today. But the problem with that is that there's already companies that are using it today, and they're already figuring out ways to ebb and flow with it. They're finding ways to weave it into their process. And when they do that, in some cases, they can have dramatic 10x results in certain areas of their business. And they can start to visualize their business in different ways. They can start to build new workflows. They can start really competing in a way where you're going to end up playing a game of catch up. If you just wait around for AGI before you ever think about incorporating it, I understand that a lot of people are struggling from getting it to R&D into production. But again, that's a lot to do with the tools. It's a lot to do with the workspaces. It's not having the workspace and the team be flexible enough to adapt to changes. And the thing is, humans, they're always 80% too, right? We're never never 100% in our performance any given task. There's always going to be tickets in your project management board which you failed, like, hey, the customer didn't like that, or I couldn't get the information, or he didn't want to respond. There's always going to be little exceptions that are popping up, and you need to be able to adapt to those and respond to those. And it's the same thing if it's an AI coworker or a human coworker. You're always going to be having to do that. So if you are interested in not having that attitude, if you don't want to wait for AI to get 10 times smarter and miss the boat and end up playing a game of catch up when your competition is already way ahead of you, reach out to our team. What we can do is we can sit down and give you a 12-month blueprint with real examples and show you exactly what your workspace could look like if you were to incorporate AI and humans together. And you would be amazed at how many different parts of your business can be automated and how many different ways you can visualize data. Just being able to, at your fingertips, be able to break down per customer, per account, per whatever. What are my growth this month? Or what's like, how many dollars is this campaign bringing in versus that campaign? What kind of copy is working and what kind of copy isn't working? Just having access to information, having access to automation, having access to all that. We could do a 12-month blueprint and you'd be amazed at what your company looks like. People are usually shocked when they get these because it's like a completely unrecognizable company. It's like a Fortune 100 company when you sit down and you can actually see what all this stuff could look like. It is indistinguishable from magic.